Hello and welcome back to another EDH deck design video. I'm going to just go ahead and shoot this deck list out real quick. This is a Nicol Bolas EDH deck. This is technically a Tide Me Over. It's just a temporary thing I shambled together with what cards I had in a binder. I've been stuck brewing a playable Grixis deck with some kind of theme for a while. I have kind of weeded out the ones I know I would not enjoy. Currently I'm stuck between a Voltron control and maybe a Dragonstorm rebuild. But for now, I'm going to show what my deck currently is. Essentially a deck just holding on to my Grixis lands and some good cards I didn't want to trade off. So this is a generic Grixis deck. Just straight up generic, nothing really elaborate, just what would be called good stuff. I had earlier already had essentially this was a design where I had three generals I would randomly shuffle up: Croesus, Grixis, Croesus, Nicol Bolas, and Thrax. I've decided no matter what deck I'm going to end up with, be it the Storm or the Voltron control, Nicol Bolas will be at the helm. A friend had done a very nice thing and traded some bulk cards off of me for a handful of cards so I could do an ABU stale. And this ended up coming from there, so I've fallen in love with this exact artwork on this card. And from that nice thing he had done for me, I'm probably going to keep this active for a very long time. Nicol Bolas is a very classic general. The original EDH format, Elder Dragon Highlander, came from the original 5 Elder Dragons from the Legends set. Nicol Bolas was the mostly considered the best out of them all because his ability is just dumb. Some of the other ones like Chromium are interesting. I've built before. I've never really done anything else. I think I almost started an Invictus deck, but I've done Bolas twice before, but I've never with this super pimp Gucci card. All of the Elder Dragons, the original ones, not the new ones there, they all cost 8 mana, and they all have an upkeep effect of paying one of each of their respective manas. Each one's a flying 7/7. The original rules of EDH came from the fact that 7 damage right here from your commander equating to 21 from 3 hits was what did commander damage out. That was the win condition. But of course things change over time and EDH evolves and whatnot, but sometimes you still see some of the older ones around. Nicol Bolas is still the most popular because his effect is devastating. His effect being that if he were ever to deal damage to an opponent, that player discards their hand. Why that is strong, like some people might think, yeah, that's getting some combat damage and might be strong if that gets through. It doesn't have to be combat damage. There are a plethora of ways to make him do damage without actually attacking. I have not yet actually started adding things like that to this exact deck, since I'm not sure what direction this deck's going to take. If you have interest in that, I would suggest looking at something like Sarkhan the Mad, the Planeswalker, because he has an ability that says you can make your dragons deal damage to a player. Chandra's Ignition is a brand new card that just got printed. It makes a creature you control deal damage equal to its power to all the other creatures and opponents. There's one card in this deck called Arc Bond. I'll get to that card when it gets there, but there's a lot of enablers where you can use his ability to make your opponents discard their hand without actually having to do general damage, like a combat yet. In designs that are usually more competitive, you usually see Cyclonic Rift effects and then you attack. Cutthroat, you would see a card called Sunder, which is a card that bounces everyone's lands to their hand, and then you connect. Things like that can be really just rude, cruel, very powerful, tend to win you games, tend to lose your friends. It depends on the maturity level of your play group. I would definitely consider that before you go run Sunder and smacking someone with Nicol Bolas, or Sundering and pinging them to lose their hand. Cyclonic Rift is the more fair one. Well, technically fair. There's also other things like Washout or Inundate. Lots of good bounce spells, effects that keep him on the board. Even if you can get his trigger on the stack, you can then try to evacuate. Things like that are just what Bolas decks try to do. The deck you're about to see does not do that. This is a generic Grixis deck with just the cards in my binder that I didn't want to get rid of. Let's go through it now. So when this first started, this is picking up the rummage from a previous Reanimator style deck. There's a lot of reanimation effects that have lingered. I've tried to weed it down. There's also an extra clone package from another previous deck, my Rain deck. So we have a Phantasmal Image, a nice 2-drop clone. We have a Snapcaster Mage. I was thinking about doing a pure Bolas theme deck with Cruel Ultimatum. So I wanted to use Snapcaster to get the Cruel Ultimatum back. But actually Snap's even better right now. There's 3 creatures in this deck that have ninjutsu, so I can really dick around with Snap a lot. We have a Coffin Queen, another generically really good reanimating creature. We have a Thassa that's a nice early drop, helps us scry every single turn. Can make Bolas unblockable, which is technically not why she's in here. She's in here because she's a 3-drop that helps us scry. We have Solon for ramp, Glen Alander for a little bit of control. Notion Thief, I love this card. This is a card that is really good in 1v1. In multiplayer, he's going to lose his effect because people will try to just kill it as fast as possible. This can be dangerous if your opponents get out a Consecrated Sphinx. But yeah, he's just an all-around good card. Essentially, anytime your opponents try to draw more than the original card, you get the extra cards, and he has Flash. We have now all the rest of the clones, a possible 3-mana or artifact clone, a Clever Impersonator, which clones all non-lands, or anything that's not land. We have Sakashima and her students, the first of the ninjutsus, and Evil Twin, which is a clone that could later destroy what it cloned. We have a little bit of control in here with Venser and Teferi. And we have some draw with Muldrifter. And another god in Keranos is a good... Usually when it comes to the card Bribery, my favorite thing is to go get Keranos. Because in a mass multiplayer game, this is a hard card to deal with. It's just something that's going to have to get exiled or bounced. That's not likely to happen because I don't try to make him a creature. But I just like it enough that I went ahead and wanted to get one for one of my decks eventually. Good card draw, we have a Flying Phyrexian Arena. We have some good answers to target removal. This is good to get rid of the Iona or whatever problem creature you can't get rid of, like a Ulamog or something. This deck, I did actually start doing the Dragonstorm collection. And this was the first dragon I really wanted to get with that. My Dragonstorm deck list I have already created. I just don't know if I'm going to go that route yet. We do have a little bit of control with Draining Milk. I took the Deadeye Navigator out. But of course there's another dragon for Dragonstorm. Ink Eyes is another ninjutsu, a really good one. Again, great at resetting Snapcaster Mage or Solemn, just a free reanimation, and the regeneration on her really is awesome. I really wish that you can ninjutsu from the command zone. That would be fantastic, although people would definitely see it coming. Runescar Demon is one of the, I think, only tutors in the deck. I have no spell tutors in this deck. There is our last ninjutsu, which I really like the Oni. It's just, if this were a legendary creature, even though you can't ninjutsu from the command zone, I would probably still run as a general. And then the last creature is Cataract Leviathan. This is essentially a Devastation Tide in creature form. This is really obnoxious when you have clones in hand because you can keep looping it every single turn. Tends to make people really unhappy, but it's just a generally good card. There's actually a very small number of instances in this deck. Again, this is just a Tide Me Over deck. These are spells that have come out of my binder, things I just did not want to get rid of yet. So just generic good stuff. Darkness, Out of Nowhere Fog effects tend to save the day. Go for the Throat and Dismember for some target removal. Arc Bond is technically an enabler with Bolas. The problem is I will also be discarding my hands if I go that route. Arc Bond has a lot of potential. This is potentially a 3-mana costing board wipe. You can target anyone's creature that is not pro-red. What you want to do is wait till some after combat damage has been dealt to a creature, and just find the creature that has been dealt the most damage, and that will most likely board wipe everything. If I allow Bolas to block something, even if Bolas blocks a 1/1 token, I can target Bolas with this. This spell will do 1 damage to all creatures and players. Every player, including myself, will discard her hand. This is dangerous, but it's really funny. So I want to keep it in here. Again, if I were focusing more on Bolas, more control and hate, I would definitely put Chandra's Ignition. Chandra's Ignition is just a really good card that just got printed. It is perfect for Nicol Bolas. Another one that just got printed in this set is called Dragon Tempest. It's like the Scourge of Valkus. A Dragon Tempest is a 2-mana costing enchantment. It says whenever creatures that enter the battlefield under your control, if they have flying, they have haste. And it is also, when a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, that dragon does damage to target creature or player equal to the number of dragons. That enchantment means that if I have the enchantment out and Bolas enters, I can poke a player for 1 and make them discard their hand. Again, that's something that's not in this deck. If I were doing Dragonstorm, I'll definitely take that approach. But for right now, I'm doing generic Grixis. Talk about generic Grixis, there's a Cyclonic Rift. We also have Aether Spouts and an Evacuation, lots of bounce. We have Factor Fiction and Steam Augury for draw, and a Singleton Counterspell. There's, other than the Glenalandra and the Illusion, whatever that 6-mana costing guy is, this is the only legitimate counterspell in the deck, because I just didn't want to get rid of it. Now there's a larger chunk of sorcery speed stuff, so I guess this would be more considered Grixis Good-Stuff in Battle Cruiser, I guess, because I'm just not doing a lot of control. But good draw, really good draw. Cruel Ultimatum did make it in here as a thematic card. I had an extra one that, this one didn't match my Cruel Grixis deck since it had different artwork. I wanted to put this one in here because it was pretty. If I have a Snapcaster Mage, sure, I can really wreck someone. But it's, I don't know, this may not be something that would last the cut. This would not be good enough for Dragonstorm. If I were doing even the Voltron control, he would probably never actually see play. So I don't know, this would probably be one of the first things to go. Reanimate, just 1 mana, giving such potential. Victimize is a leftover from when I was having reanimation shenanigans. Rise of the Dark Realms will most likely always stay in the deck no matter what route it takes, because this can be a win condition. Stolen Identity is more clone nonsense, where I will most likely get 2 clones since I can combat it. Right is also a win condition. Bribery can be a win condition. Acquire, not always going to get something powerful. This could be a backfiring and just get you a soul ring or solemn. The best thing this deck really likes to do is get some kind of mana source fast. There are 38 lands in the deck, but only like 3 to 4 mana accelerants. So stealing someone's Gilded Lotus is really good. Spell Twine is more shenanigans. This is, sadly, this exiles itself, so I can't Snapcaster it unless I mill it. Curse of the Swine is another generic good stuff removal. Exiling creatures in blue is really good. Don't really care about them getting 2/2s in replacement. We have more board wipes. We have a 3-mana costing board wipe, a 4-mana costing board wipe, a 5-mana costing board wipe that may let him survive. We have a 7-mana costing board wipe that does exile itself, but I can reanimate something for free, whatever is on the board that's dying, that is. And we have a 8-mana costing board wipe that targets an opponent and draws cards. Decree is the strictly better one there, although I do destroy my own creatures at the same time. And Exsanguinate is just another generic win condition. This deck does have a Coffers and Urborg. It is designed for late game with big creatures. If the creatures are failing, this may just keep me alive or win me the game. There's only 1 enchantment. This deck has a Phyrexian Arena. I had a Phyrexian Reclamation in here earlier, and a whatever the blue Leyline is, Leyline of Anticipation. Those 2 came out. They just, in the long run, no matter what route this deck would take, those 2 were not going to be in there. This one most likely would always stay in there. There is a handful of artifacts, not a lot really. We have a top, still not running fetches. My land base, when I get to it, is somewhere between optimal and budget. So fetches may make their way in. It's just not something that's really high on my list of needs right now. We do have the map to get the Coffers or Urborg. It's usually better to get Urborg first, so that you have at least fixed your black mana, although this deck is essentially 50% blue. We have a Scroll Rack, just to help us dig a little bit deeper. And ramp in the form of Soul Ring, Thron Dynamo, and Gilded Lotus. 3 ramp. I thought I had a bauble in here. Anyways, there's not a bauble. There's only 3 things to ramp. Not a lot of ramp. We are more interested in making proper plays early, getting our lands fixed, and drawing cards. So 38 lands total. Reliquary Tower is there because this deck does tend to draw lots of extra cards. Homeward Path is a placeholder. I would like to get a Volrath Stronghold to put back in here. I really actually want to take this out of my deck. I have a particular friend who's playing a very great, it's a very powerful Mimnarch deck, and this feels like I am partially hating on him, so I kind of want to take it out. I don't like that kind of feeling in my play group. I do not have an Ancient Tomb in here, but I do have a Temple. Winding Canyons is great because most people forget this is here, and then I can sneak him out at the end of someone's turn. As you saw, I don't even have Boots in here, no way of giving him haste other than... Yeah, there's no way of giving him haste. So this is essentially here so I can sneak him out at the end of an opponent's turn, and then I can protect him hopefully while they are unaware of him. We have the Urborg and the Coffers for gross amounts of mana. The only bad thing here, a lot of people have an opinion of running these two together in a more than 2 color deck. One mono black decks and a 2 color deck with black, it's definitely good. In a 3 color deck, then you're really kind of stretching it. The issue is this deck is 50% blue, very small amount is red, so I would say maybe 20% of the deck is black. So this ends up being just a big waste half the time. But this is still good because it's mana fixing, and this is just another utility land then. It doesn't actually, it's not necessary unless I'm going after the Exandrinate. We have the colorful lands. This is where we're somewhere between budget and optimal. We have a Great Land. This would not be in a competitive deck because it comes into play tapped. I do have the 3 legendary lands just to help get extra effects off on combat. These were great with Thraxamundar. They've remained in here. We have 3 shock lands. We have 3 temples. These will most likely go and change over to the new Tango lands from the Return to Zendikar card block. The Tango lands are the new dual lands that come into play tapped unless you control 2 or more basics. They don't care what basics, but they're called Tango lands because it takes 2 to tango kind of thing. They will be directly replacing these. I do not really need to scry, and I don't like tap lands when not necessary. There are the check lands. Again, these are something that may not always be necessary. Their filter lands are great because the double blue on these 2 help with things like Cryptic Command early. The pain lands are also sometimes, they don't come to play tapped, and usually 1v1 they're great. And then finally, I do have the creature lands. They did just start spoilers for the Zendikar Return to Zendikar block, so I have these 2 from the original one. I was thinking about making this the blue-red one, so I would have all 3 possible. They haven't spoiled the blue-red one yet, but these are coming to play tap lands. If I were inclined to make this more competitive, I would switch these out for fetches, because I do plan on getting the temples replaced with more fetchable dual lands. I definitely can't afford to put like legitimate dual lands from Alpha Beta and whatnot in here, but I do like the idea of getting fetches to go with the more fetchable ones. If you are familiar with my decks in my channel, I don't tend to run fetch lands, especially if they are off color. I would definitely only put 3 fetches in here, the Scalding Tarn, Polluted Delta, and Bloodstained Mire, because they are the on-color fetches. I know it's more competitive, you want consistency, you would put all 9 fetch lands that work with this deck in here. Thematically, I would not do that. It's just personal opinion. I am vain. I know, it's bad. Finally, we have just a couple basics. There's actually no basic mountains in here. The deck is predominantly blue, so we only have, like, what, 3 swamps, no mountains. When it comes to non-basic land hate, your most common thing you'll see is a Blood Moon effect, so that's why there's not as many mountains. The deck also has very few mountains, or need for red mana. But yeah, this is Bolas. This is a straight up generic Grixis deck. There's nothing really special about this deck. There's lots of cute interactions, like ninjutsu is fun, but there's really only 3 good ninjutsu playable cards. This came off of a mass reanimation strategy. Last time there's like about 5 more reanimation techs in there. I've decided out of my 3 initial ideas of reanimation, Voltron control, and Storm, that it's definitely not going to be reanimation, because I've done too much reanimation in the past. I just literally re-uploaded my Bladewing deck, which is pretty much a reanimator deck. The Voltron control would most likely be a stronger deck in the long run, even though I only play traditional mass multiplayer EDH with about 3 to 4 opponents is average. The Dragonstorm is a desire. I know that to add enough tech in here to make Dragonstorm, I would need things like a Mystical Tutor and Entomb. I would need legitimately strong cards, And the Storm potential, I would definitely throw in the Worldgorger Dragon combo as well. That means the deck could potentially combo out on turn 3 with like a proper ramp if I had a, or just like a lands that don't come into play tapped is most important. But a Storm combo like that is not a strong Storm. It's not like I'm going to Tendrils. Dragonstorm is more thematic with approximately 22 dragons in the deck. That can be really strong, especially if you build it right, because there's something like a Quicken, which is a 1 blue instant speed cantrip that lets you play a sorcery as if it had instant. So you can piggyback on someone's turn and use their spells they've casted for the Storm count, and then just swing in. The reason I'm thinking about Dragonstorm, is because of Dragonlord Culligan. He is a haste enabler that can be tutored up to play with Dragonstorm. That is a more chaotic deck. It is not going to be a reliably strong deck. The reason I am hesitant to just dive right into that is because in my immediate play group, the closest one to me, I don't actually have a strong deck right now. I'm playing Chandra and Bosch and stupid things that are just thematic. I don't actually have a legitimately strong deck. I don't think this is strong enough for that own play group. So I'm stuck. It's going to go one of those two routes. I have a lofty dream that they're going to spoil some kind of new Grixis general that may make me want some new tech. I saw the new Omnath. I also have a secret passion that if they're reprinting Omnath with 2 colors, maybe we'll get a black-red Drana. If they do that, then I will most likely go head over heels straight into a black-red Drana build. Even if she's barely playable, I've just been itching for a strong Rakdos deck. I could definitely see myself doing that. But if you have any suggestions, if you would like to throw some ideas for a Grixis idea at me, a route to take, because this right here is just flat good stuff. There's no direction I've taken here other than what I had in my binder. I know my goal right now is to simply improve my lands when those lands come out. Going after Scalding Tarn right now seems unlikely, but I do already have the Polluted Delta and the Bloodstained Mire. If I get a Scalding Tarn, I'll definitely just throw the fetches in there since I already have them then. But yeah, if you have any ideas, if you'd like to see me attempt anything Grixis-wise, let me know. And I have a preference for trying to keep him as the commander, although I know how disgusting he can be. He's very slow to come out, but I know the potential that Bolas can do. So a control deck with Bolas is definitely really good in 1v1. I am multiplayer though, and that's not going to be as reliable. So throw me some ideas. Let's see what you got.